You're listening to Contesting Wrestling Premium. My name is Doc Diamondfire. We're here with Ben Abelson, Professor, and Ref Katie Vella, and we watched something that was a lot better than See No Evil 2 by Kane this week. Yeah. Thank goodness.
So we decided to
I'm holding Evan Burke personally accountable for that.
Why
we could have watched Lucha Underground.
Yeah. And so in that spirit, we're starting a new series for our premium episodes, tentatively titled The Art of Raw.
Right, so we watched the first 2 episodes of Monday Night Raw, which you can find on the network, and I guess you'll be able to find it on Peacock soon enough. Just...
From 1993, January 11th and 18th.
Now, I've always been a big fan of Year One Raw. The shows are 1 hour, minus commercials. At the time, almost all wrestling television was just squash matches, or the show would be an hour of squash matches and promos with one match that wasn't just a squash match. And with the advent of Monday Night Raw, they started pushing it more towards competitive contests. Not that most of the matches we watched weren't foregone conclusions, but it wasn't just some guy versus the superstar.
Yeah, and this represents this beginning of Raw has a great place in my heart. I'm very fond of it because it represents really the beginning of my wrestling fandom. I started watching WWF around September of 1992. Monday Night Raw debuts in January of 93. I'm already quite into the product, though I'm not quite sure how to watch Raw. I hear them talking about Monday Night Raw on Superstars every week, and how it's on the USA Network. I don't have cable as a kid, so I can't watch it there. About how it's being filmed in the Manhattan Center in New York City. But as an 8-year-old child, I couldn't go to a show on a school night, even if I could talk my parents into bringing me to a wrestling show, which right around this time I went to my first house show as well, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But it was a little bit into this run of Raw that I started watching it. So I'd actually never seen the first several episodes except for the first episode, which I did watch right when Raw was first put on the WWE Network. But a lot of this is, in one way, very, very familiar to me because it's the beginning of my fandom, but in another way, unfamiliar to me because I haven't actually seen some of these episodes before. Katie, how does the beginning of Monday Night Raw fit into your general conception of the history of the WWF?
I mean, keep in mind, I started watching Raw 10 full years after this. So it's more just interesting to look back for me and to have that historical knowledge of what was going on when.
Awesome, yeah, and I think it's cool, having me and Doc watching these things where we're looking back in our own wrestling fandom, and then having you here to provide a fresher sort of perspective.
Yeah, because see, I don't have nostalgia, so I don't give a fuck. So, which is why I often love to tell people that the Attitude Era, from a quality perspective, actually sucked donkey balls.
Well, this is before all that, though. Yeah. Everything on this show is
this
the best.
is even earlier.
I won't hear a word against it, right?
Yeah, the Attitude Era, I don't have nostalgia for. I
because you quit because they screwed Bret.
They screwed Bret, and then everybody was like doing crotch chops in my face in the hallway. Yeah. And I didn't appreciate that.
Suck it, Ben.
And
Suck it.
No. I mean, I was fully prepared to suck something. But not what they were offering.
I remember the first time I heard them saying, suck it. Me and the people who I were around were wondering, they can't say anything worse than that because it was so tame by whatever we were talking about in the schoolyard at the time. I realized looking back on it, me and my friends got really verbally nasty really quickly.
Right. Yeah, it as a freaking 12 or 13-year-old or whatever, it felt sophomoric to me.
At 15, I was a sophomore.
Right.
It was great.
In
No,
93?
no. During the Attitude
Oh,
Era, at the
during the
peak
Attitude
of
Era, sorry.
DX
Attitude
pointing
Era.
at their crotches. And so I know in 93 here, I was, I guess the beginning of 93, I was 10. I was 10, right? Yeah, I was 10. And I thought, well, I didn't see this either until, I didn't start watching Raw until about a year in. I was catching Superstars every week for the same reasons. I didn't have cable.
Right.
I finally started going to a friend's house who had cable, and I started watching it there.
Right. Eventually, I went to my grandma's house to watch it, which was not very far away, but that was necessitated by Hulk Hogan returning to the WWF and me having to see
If you had to see Monday Night Raw at your grandma's house and you go over and you turn it on and it was just guys pointing at their crotches, I bet you that wouldn't have lasted. Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. And as much as I was a Bret Hart fan already at this point, Hulk Hogan still held this mythical status. I had barely seen any Hulk Hogan, but as soon as they said that he was going to show up, I knew that I had to see it.
Yeah, well, as fans that got into the WWF around '92, it's like even more mythical than they were, generally trying to go, because we didn't really see him wrestle. We got in during that period of time that he was out, but it's not like he wasn't a huge celebrity for the entirety of our childhoods. So his name had a lot of clout. He never ended up wrestling on Raw.
Hulk Hogan doesn't show up yet.
He never ended up wrestling on Raw.
No. But Hogan does not show up yet in these first two episodes. It's very much the Bret Hart show at this point, which we'll get into in a moment. But to begin with, more than anything, it's the Bobby Heenan show.
And he isn't even one of the announcers.
And he's not even technically on it. So we open up with Sean Mooney outside the Hammerstein Ballroom, or the Manhattan Center, the downstairs of which is the Hammerstein Ballroom, and the upstairs of which is the Grand Ballroom, which is where these early episodes of Monday Night Raw
capacity
all took place,
about 1,100.
And where years later we would see some of the best ever Ring of Honor shows. So it was cool for us those years later going to Ring of Honor shows being like, ooh, this is where they filmed Monday Night Raw at the beginning, since we never got to see those live, that is. All right, so Sean Mooney's out there, and Bobby Heenan shows up, and he's upset because he was replaced by comedian Rob Bartlett from the Don Imus show on commentary. Now, I'm not really old enough to remember the Don Imus show. I wasn't listening to talk radio yet. It would be a couple of years before I started listening to Howard Stern. And I only knew about Don Imus because when I saw the Howard Stern movie, which was the first R-rated movie that I somehow got myself into as an
That's how you get
kid.
into the R-rated movies. You're never quite sure how, and then you realize when you're older, most movie theaters aren't paying attention to anything.
Right. And I knew that Don Imus was like Howard Stern's rival from that. But that's
he was a slightly older and slightly less sharp guy who went on the radio and said slightly less controversial things in the ongoing battle to say more controversial things that eventually had to end.
Yeah, which describes pretty well Rob Bartlett on this show.
It was a style of comedy that was very popular in the early 90s. Like, it was before, like, the full-on, like, what we would call now edgelord stuff that would happen a decade afterwards. But it had taken a certain kind of verbal rebellion and really commodified it. Like, there were thousands of comedians, seemingly in New York, that were trying to be like Rob Bartlett. And I don't know if Rob Bartlett was any good at it, actually. I know he clearly didn't know anything about wrestling. And
absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
It was not a good fit for Monday
He's
Night
on
Raw
for
here.
6, maybe 8 weeks before they finally cut him out.
And the funny thing about it is they're trying really hard to make him fit. You know, the other announcers are Vince McMahon and Macho Man Randy Savage. And Randy Savage tries really hard to sort of go back and forth with him in his style of humor. Vince laughs hysterically at everything he says.
I mean, by halfway into the first episode, you can tell when Vince is like laughing kind of angrily when Bartlett ridicules every babyface that comes out during their entrance. Right in the middle of Vince hyping them up, too.
There's one point where where Bartlett makes a joke about like Shawn Michaels taking out a knife or something, and Vince is like, "All right, we gotta stop.
All right, shut the fuck up.
We can't have that.
No, we're not pushing."
What was that, Katie?
He said, "All right, shut the fuck up."
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
We're not trying to be edgy. Raw is just a marketing phrase.
He actually says it's not. We're not that raw. Okay.
Not that raw. Okay. Come on. Calm down.
But the very first thing out of Bartlett's mouth is mispronouncing Yokozuna, calling him Yokozuma, and saying that he's wearing a giant diaper.
I mean, he kind of is, but it's you don't just say that.
It's like making fun of Hulk Hogan by calling him old and bald. Like, yeah, but then like, who cares? And then he says the word ass in some way to describe Yoko.
Yoko gave Coco the safe sit, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Not the jobber kill sit.
Right. So our first match is Yokozuna taking on Coco Beware. And as you put it, Katie, yes, the bonsai drop is rather controlled in this case on the veteran Coco Beware. And it is quite a squash, though, in a couple of different senses of the word.
It was very well structured. No. Coco knew exactly what to do. First he tried shoulder blocking Yoko and bumped off of each of them. Then he tried drop kicking Yoko, and it stumbled him a little because Coco had a great drop kick. And then when he went for another shoulder block, Yoko sidestepped him and threw him out of the ring. Yokozuna, to his credit, he had only been in the WWF 6-8 months at this point, max. And he knew exactly how to continue to conserve what he had. He didn't do much. He didn't do as much as he would do the next year when he was like champion and on top. Mostly, he stood there and stayed unfazed. Like the only real offense he got in was when he would just knock Coco down, hit that incredible leg drop, and then bonsai sit on him. And everybody bought it. I bought it.
Bonsai.
Yeah. Mr. Fuji at ringside and, doing whatever it is that Mr. Fuji ever did.
Chilling.
Coco is no longer has the bird at this point. He's one half of High Energy with Owen Hart, the tag team. He's got the checkered overalls.
They bring up that Frankie is not at ringside on commentary.
Yeah, this is pretty close to the end of Coco's career.
Coco would be out pretty soon.
Almost the end. But he did the job here for the new major heel that they were pushing at the time, Yokozuna. This is just only a couple of weeks before the Royal Rumble we recently covered, the 93 Rumble that Yokozuna won.
Both of these episodes are the lead up to that.
Exactly, yeah. So the very first thing they're doing is making this guy look like an absolute monster, which was not difficult because he was 500 pounds and would jump off the second rope and sit on you.
Look, he sat on Coco very carefully. He that means he liked Coco.
Coco was also, he had a reputation for being a real tough guy, and I'm sure he didn't care how big Yoko was in the back if he wanted to give him a piece of his mind or worse. Not that he could have beaten him up or anything, but like Coco wasn't afraid of nobody.
And Yoko was still trying to prove himself. As much as he was a commodity that they were pushing, he was still, fairly green as far as their roster went and wanted to make a good impression.
Yeah, like he had been wrestling for several years already. He had been impressive that whole time if you go see like videos of the Great Coquina and all that. But a lot of his appeal had to do with the WWF recognizing what to do with him. Let's dress him like a sumo wrestler, give him Mr. Fuji, who's already full of heat, and then have him be the immovable object, and we'll put our whole force behind that. And if Yoko started to mess it up, they wouldn't continue doing that with him. They could get another they could find another 500-pound guy to be a sumo wrestler. Maybe he wouldn't be as good, but they would if they thought Yoko wouldn't be an asset, which he was.
So before we move on to the next segment, I want to point out at this point we had the Raw girls. We had women walking around in the ring holding signs between the matches.
Man, that first one they show with the huge feathered hair, man, that hair was in really in 5 years before this show aired.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, they're supposed to be like boxing card round girls.
Yeah, it was trendy at the time.
And they were likely local strippers from the clubs, a few blocks away.
I would hope
in
so.
Herald Square.
Give those girls a payday.
Right, the Times Square strip clubs were still there,
and
weren't they? Oh, man.
Right. At Times Square. And there's still, Herald Square. Not that I would know anything about that.
Is that what they're putting in the shell of the Manhattan Mall?
They're always handing out. They're always handing out flyers for Rick's Cabaret and stuff like that.
Rick's is not paying us.
They should just change. They should just convert all of the unused Manhattan Mall into various strip clubs. It'd be a better use of space than it is now.
Now, I'm not sure if the strip clubs have been reopened post-pandemic.
I have no idea.
City. I know in some places there's like drive-through strip clubs. I don't think that would work, especially not now in the winter in New York.
Man, drive-through strip clubs. Anything that I think of to say about that is worse than the previous thing I thought about to say about that and stop myself. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of strippers, next we get Bobby Heenan delivering a promo announcing the coming of Narcissus.
Better than perfect.
Also
Katie.
known as Lex Luger.
Yes, Lex Luger would be, he would eventually be renamed the Narcissist Lex Luger. But for weeks, I remember this very clearly, Bobby Heenan going on about Narcissus. And I, by this time, I knew a little bit about Greek mythology, so I thought that was kind of cool that they were drawing from it.
Oh, look at Mr. Ben and his PhD being like, well, I was 10 years old or however the hell. I was 8 years old and I already knew my Greek mythology.
Yeah, I played the Battle of Olympus on the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's
there you go.
Yeah, we all fucking watched Hercules, the Disney animated film too when we were kids.
Yeah, that wasn't out yet, but yeah.
Oh, look at Ben. He's like, well, I knew it before the movie. I had picture books.
Nothing against picture books.
I think there was like a golden book of mythology.
You can't see it, but Ben is just rubbing his butthole all over his PhD.
Of all the things to rub.
Direct butthole
as
contact.
I am, continuously.
He has actually gotten it printed on a pillow that he puts on his chair.
Hey, I need, butt support.
He has hemorrhoids, guys.
It's on a donut.
All right.
It's actually on one of those medical donuts.
Of course. So getting and my chair is also one of those toilet chairs. So I'm actually shitting continuously through my PhD.
Speaking of shitting continuously, the Steiner brothers are coming out next. What? No.
Wait. Before the Steiner brothers, I have more to say about this promo.
Okay.
Everything in this promo is shiny. Heenan is wearing this incredible shiny pink shirt. The backdrop is a shiny silver curtain, and it's reflecting in Bobby Heenan's eyes. So he is in positive rapture about the virtues of the coming Narcissus, who is greater than perfect in all these ways, and his eyes are literally sparkling, are literally gleaming when talking about it. I thought all that was a great detail. I remember this as a kid, as it having this kind of otherworldly character, which really got you really anticipating the coming of this new
Bobby
wrestler.
Heenan didn't half-ass anything when it came to promoting his guys, and when it's like, okay, got to get the new guy over, he was going to put his all into it, and he did. And that includes presentation, like the sparkly of everything. Like, Heenan knew how to present himself. He knew what everything was going to look like.
So, so next we do have my favorite tag team of all time, Rick and Scott, the Steiner brothers.
The long drum roll.
Taking on...
And at the beginning of their music.
Yes, at the beginning of their music, before the Michigan State
I don't know.
theme song.
I don't know. Okay, you're from the Midwest. Do you recognize the Steiner brothers theme music at all off the top of your head?
No, I really don't, but it's probably from a part of the Midwest that I'm not from.
I remember thinking it was kind of similar to Pomp and Circumstance, the Macho Man theme, but a little bit different.
Yeah, because it fit them.
Anyway, yeah, they wrestled the Executioners, who are like basically jobbers with under hoods. Do you know which jobbers they are?
I looked it up. Yes,
I looked it up.
It's Barry Hardy.
Who are they?
And Dwayne Gill.
Barry Hardy and Dwayne Gill.
Dwayne Gill was definitely the one we pointed out as being better than the other one, right?
Yes.
Because one of them is clearly good and one of them is not very good at all. And clearly the one that would have been good would have had to be Dwayne Gill.
Yeah, Barry Hardy wasn't terrible, but he definitely fucks up in this match. He definitely falls over the one time when he's taking an Irish whip.
Yeah, he wasn't. He looked like he wasn't prepared to get whipped as hard as Rick Steiner was whipping him. But still, you can't just fall over your feet like that.
Yeah.
Also, Rick Steiner will come after
everything
you.
the fucking... Yes. I would say that again. I don't know if we picked it up.
Rick Steiner will come after you.
Yeah. And everything the Steiners do is hard.
Oh, man.
The fucking Steiner lines, the suplexes, the tilt-a-whirls.
Scott Steiner, the suplex machine, was incredible.
Holy fuck. They're just beyond everyone else in terms of that kind of stuff at this point in the WWF. And that's why they were my favorite tag team. You know, that Bret was my favorite singles wrestler because he was the best at that. And these guys were by far the best tag team that I had seen then and pretty much that I've seen since. They destroyed their opponents. The Doomsday Bulldog, the Bulldog from the top rope, is absolutely devastating finish that they use here to polish these guys off.
I mean, everything Steiner did looked amazing, so...
Yeah. So during the match, we have Doink in the background, in the crowd, messing with fans, and they start talking about it. Hilarious moment for me. So Bartlett calls him Dork, and Vince goes along with it for a while. He's like, yeah, Dork. And then Macho's like, isn't his name Doink? And then they're like, oh, Vince is like, oh shit, yeah, Doink. His name is
Bartlett
Doink.
never gets it and just keeps calling him Dork. I think Bartlett was purposefully mispronouncing Doink's name to be funny. I think Vince missed...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'd so assume so,
I think that Vince missed that and started just going along with it as a different name because since the character wasn't fully introduced, it would be interesting if maybe they got it wrong. And I think all of that went over Randy Savage's head. And he was just like, guys, it's Doink the Clown. Doink. You're getting it wrong.
It really sounds like Vince forgot.
Maybe.
And just is going along with Bartlett because he just didn't remember the name that he himself had chosen.
Could have
most
been.
likely until Macho
reminded him.
Dork
the Clown.
Yeah. Macho says something hilarious where he tells a joke or something and he's like, I'm kidding, but I'm not joking. I like that.
He was a good commentator. He was very full of character.
All right.
He didn't want to be a commentator was the problem. He wanted to wrestle.
And well, he gets a program early on here in Monday Night Raw that we'll get to in episode 2. So Vince was letting him do both for a little while. But we go back outside with Sean Mooney, and there is clearly Bobby Heenan in drag trying to get into the building, saying that he is Rob Bartlett's aunt.
Mooney plays along a little bit.
Mooney finds him out. Yeah. With both of the costumes that Heenan will do throughout the night. He plays along for a second. He plays along. Bobby Heenan.
Heenan wasn't afraid to make himself look like a complete idiot either, and he knew how.
No, Heenan was like, I'll put on a dress. It'll be funny.
It'll be funny. It'll be obviously me.
Which at the time...
Well, the joke isn't that, oh, I'm dressed as a woman. The joke is I'm obviously still Bobby Heenan. And anybody can look at me and just see that. And I'm just going to pretend like it's a good costume. Yeah.
Yeah, including later on when he dresses up as a Hasidic Jew.
In a big fake beard.
Have you ever tried to fucking drive through Williamsburg when all the Hebrew schools get out of...
No, and I don't plan to.
Get out, when the students get out, and it's like just this torrent of school buses specific to the Jewish schools just clogging up the streets. Hey, it's cool, but don't get caught in that
school
traffic.
Bus traffic is because they all got to be careful.
You'll be fucked
because they're driving with a bus full of kids. I'm not saying they need to protect the kids. I'm saying you're in a bus full of like 45 9-year-olds. You got to be paying real close attention to the road because the disasters that are happening right behind your head are very distracting.
So, all right, we get back to a interview in the ring. Vince interviewing Rezar Ramon, the bad guy, who is set to challenge Bret Hart for the WWF Championship at the coming Royal Rumble. And so Vince is like, well, Rezar, you're getting a title shot really quick. Some might say you're some kind of Johnny come lately. And Rezar looks at him quizzically and is like, who?
Well, Rezar makes the good point. He's like, Hitman in his bad fake Cuban accent. He points out like, oh, you've been in the WWF 7.5 years and got your title match. 8.5 years. I've been here 8.5 months, and I've caught up with you. And I always thought that was a pretty good heel thing. I think that would have been a less good line if Rezar was going to beat him at the Royal Rumble, because it would have really parried Bret. But no, I mean, Bret was going to beat Rezar Ramon.
Right.
Almost everybody.
Right. Just because you get a title shot doesn't mean you're going to be the champion.
I was watching some NWA, it's like some Crockett stuff from the early 80s, and they're like, all right, well, at the... R.I.P. Jim Crockett Jr. for sure.
He, as of the record, excuse me, sorry, I'm a little groggy, Ben. I had my vaccine yesterday, and I'm a little out of it. Like, I'm mostly fine, but like my bones hurt, so it's making me a little less coherent than normal.
Fair enough.
You can keep that. You can keep all that in, guys. Go get vaccinated. It's not that bad. You might feel kind of sick, but you know what's worse? Getting COVID. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm groggy for completely different reasons.
Yeah, so we're all. That's why the hemorrhoid jokes were so funny. What was I saying? I'm sorry. What was the topic at hand?
We were talking about Rezar Ramon being a challenger after a short period of time.
He's going to lose to... Crockett.
Oh, yeah. As of the day we recorded this episode, 2 days ago, Jim Crockett Jr. passed away.
Yeah. So what I was saying is I was watching some Crockett from the early 80s, and they're promoting the shows on the Loop. And the interview is like, all right, well, Ric Flair is going to defend the World Heavyweight Championship against this man coming here, Blackjack Mulligan Jr., which was Barry Windham. Jr. comes on out, and he's not a very good promo yet, and he's not very intense, and he doesn't really, and he's just like, I'm going to fight good, and I'm going to win the world, prove to you that I was a little boy, and I met you, Ric Flair, and now I'm a man. And it's like, okay, just because you're getting a title match don't mean you're beating Ric Flair. Bet you Flair will make the audience that night think so.
He never got much better at promos.
I guess not. It helped when he got a lot bigger. He filled out quite well. Peak Barry Windham, which was an inconsistent beast, was very good.
Absolutely. So Rezar here, the story is he jumped Owen Hart in the locker room to get at Bret. And this was the first real character thing I ever saw of Owen. He was in High Energy. I saw him wrestle on Superstars occasionally, but it was like, oh shit. They fridged Owen for Bret's benefit.
I had thought that Owen was bad because I had never seen him win a match.
Right. And he seemed fairly weak since it was so easy for people to like Jerry Lawler and Rezar Ramon to jump him in order to piss off Bret.
Which is what made it all the more shocking when he finally beat Bret at WrestleMania. Yeah.
Absolutely. Whether they had that kind of thing in mind at this point or not,
that's booking.
Who knows?
If you're smart at the time when booking went so slowly, if they told you, hey, we like your work, and you're going out there and jobbing every night, you think, okay, they like my work. Well, we're going to see where this goes. And then that's part of the character later.
Another funny detail here. Rezar throws the toothpick at Vince at the end of the interview, and he looks at him. He hesitates for a second before he does it. Probably like, let me not actually fucking poke out the boss's eye when I do this. Good stuff. So they're promoting the Headlock on Hunger tour at this point, because they're doing this promotion where they're benefiting Somalia, which was going through a famine at the time.
Okay.
And I remember this very well, the Headlock on Hunger. I went to the Headlock on Hunger show at Madison Square Garden, January 29th. It was the first house show that I ever went to. And so I saw a lot of these matches that they were promoting. Bret Hart versus Bam Bam Bigelow, Shawn Michaels versus Bob Backlund, and all this stuff. It was a great show for me as a kid. I got to see, Randy Savage versus Ted DiBiase, Undertaker versus IRS, Ric Flair versus Mr. Perfect. It was Big Boss Man versus Ramon. It was absolutely stacked from a superstar perspective, looking back now. At the time, it was probably seen as like, oh, well, Hogan's not on it.
Hogan hadn't been on any shows
Bret
in like
trying
2
to
years.
prove himself as a draw.
Yeah.
I suppose not. Yeah, by then.
Wasn't
business
quite
was
in
way
W-
down.
Was
right?
he in WCW
No.
already? By this
No,
point?
This was
no.
before he came back and won the title again at WrestleMania 9 and then left. And then he joined WCW.
Oh, right, he comes
Right.
back. Fuck. Oh, sorry. Fuck.
It's coming. It's coming soon. If we
Hulk
keep
Hogan is
watching these Raws.
Hulk Hogan is a hemorrhoid pillow.
We do get a Tatanka promo about the Headlock on Hunger. That's very short. But the better one comes in the next episode when we get Undertaker's promo about Headlock on Hunger. No one should die of hunger.
Moving forward, what's next? We have
Next is the Intercontinental Championship match between Shawn Michaels, the champion, with his baby blue Intercontinental title, against Max Moon with his fucking gauntlets that shot fireworks and streamers. Incredibly cheesy looking fucking shooting
I felt
gauntlets.
that this match, went about 10 minutes. I think it went about 5 minutes too long.
Yeah, absolutely. No match should be this long. I'm sorry, guys.
I enjoyed this match a lot. I guess maybe it went a little long. When I was watching it, I realized a couple of episodes ago we discovered when doing the Bryan Danielson premium episode that Shawn Michaels and Paul Diamond have a history going way back to the very beginning of Shawn Michaels' career. They were the All-American Boys in Texas.
Not to be confused with the American males. American males.
Right.
American males.
And so this match between Max Moon, who was Paul Diamond, and Shawn Michaels was actually two, very good friends with a lot of history with each other, now being on, worldwide TV. The crowd already kind of really likes Shawn. Like, Shawn is the heel here, but the crowd is definitely into him. I love when he turns to the camera and he says, "This face has broken so many homes."
Oh, Shawn Michaels.
Max Moon does some cool shit. He does like a seated senton from the apron, a Finley roll into a pin. At the end, Shawn beats him with the super kick and then the teardrop suplex. But what made this match kind of annoying for me wasn't the match, and this might be why it went as long as it did, but they decided for this match, for the Intercontinental title match, to have Bartlett do the stupid Mike Tyson impersonation.
Yeah, I kind of like... I mean, they wanted him because he did his radio shtick, which included stuff like this. But it doesn't fit on a show like Raw. It doesn't fit on you can't... The commentator's job is not to be the one you're focusing on for more than a couple seconds at a time, maybe. You can't have them do a 2-minute long bit over a match that's happening. Right,
And it wasn't a good bit either.
Everybody at the time did a Mike Tyson impression, and everyone did it better than this one.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I thought this was probably... either the best or like second best match of these two episodes, which maybe isn't saying that much.
It was a full match. Most of the matches only went a few minutes. This one did get its time, and I did feel like it went a little too long. But right, they actually wrestled and had kind of a back and forth. It wasn't just Yokozuna sitting on Coco Beware in a competent squash.
So, continuing to talk about Shawn Michaels, we next get the Royal Rumble report. And one of the big things about the coming Royal Rumble is that Shawn Michaels is finally going to defend the Intercontinental title against his former tag team partner, Marty Jannetty from the Rockers, who had recently returned. They did the whole gimmick where Marty tried to hit Shawn with the heart-shaped mirror. Shawn put Sherry in the way, so Sherry got hit with the heart-shaped mirror. Sherry is going to return at the Rumble, but we don't know whose corner she's going to be in.
But whose side is she on?
Yeah. So they both do promos about it. Marty does not look good in his promo. And sure enough, the story is when it came time for the Rumble, Marty showed up drunk, and that's why he didn't beat Shawn Michaels for the title at the Rumble.
I was literally questioning as we were watching this. I wonder if Marty's drunk here.
Yeah. No, and I have a lot of experience looking at people, being drunk and trying to hide the fact that they're drunk.
I think we all do.
Yeah. Yeah, perhaps.
No, we all do in some fashion.
I like when they announce each Rumble entrant, the little rumbling effect on the graphic. That was fun. I always love these reports.
Yeah, me too. I think they need to bring them back. To break up whatever the hell they're trying to do on Raw. Because sometimes you don't know what's happening on the special events because they don't really go through them like this.
Yeah, they do a bunch more promos. I noticed Fuji said Yokozuna also.
Yeah, he said it a lot. And if that's the only time you ever paid any attention to what Yoko's name was, you might think that was it.
I suppose. It'd be weird that like the Japanese guy mispronounces the Japanese word though. But hey. So yeah, there's also promos from Mr. Perfect and Hacksaw Jim Duggan here, which they always cut a good, formulaic but fun promo.
Duggan is just going to try real hard. He's not going to guarantee victory, just that he'll give it 110%.
We get a replay from Superstars of Kamala turning on Harvey Whippleman and Kimchi and joining the Reverend Slick.
Yeah.
The newly re-gimmicked Reverend Slick, which is weird, probably weird for most people who, were older wrestling fans. This is the very first I ever saw of Slick.
Right.
I didn't realize that he was actually a pimp who had been reformed into a preacher. I just saw the preacher. Which was, it was cool. Kamala turning face was a weird thing that didn't really work.
Yeah, maybe if they'd given it more time. I don't know. One of the big problems with Kamala in general in the WWF is that he lost to everybody. I can't think of one program that he won.
No. Did he beat... I remember when he turned face, he feuded with Mr. Hughes.
Now maybe
did he beat Mr. Hughes or did he... I don't know if they ever
not
really
in an important show.
Yeah, I think Mr. Hughes might have actually beaten him in a King of the Ring qualifying match.
Okay.
I'm not. Yeah, well, I'll have to look into that. Listeners, if you remember Kamala beating anybody in a program,
someone always does.
Let us know.
Anytime we're like, listeners, does anyone know? Someone always does immediately.
Yeah.
Usually Bobby.
Usually Bobby, right.
Yes.
Okay, so the main event of this show is The Undertaker versus Damien Demento.
Oh, yeah.
A nice clash of gimmicks here. Bartlett, one great line from Bartlett about Damien Demento. He's like, well, at least he's using his real name.
Yeah, I thought that was good, too.
Damien Demento from the outer reaches of your mind.
Yeah, that was always cool, too. I
liked Damien Demento.
Like I said, one of the problems with Bartlett is that he would mock all of the baby faces. When he would make fun of Demento, that's fine,
I can see that. Anyway, it's a standard Undertaker match.
Sure.
He beats him with the tombstone.
3 minutes to a finish.
Yeah. Demento spends most of the match, talking to himself.
Yeah.
As he was wont to do.
That was the gimmick. He had somebody talking to him in the stars or something. And,
So before the episode ends, we get an interview with Doink. Doink's got his arm in a sling. And he says that Crush, or Vince says, I think, that, Crush warned you about making children cry.
Right.
And Crush actually comes out and threatens him a bit and chases him around. And this is going to lead into the big storyline between Crush and Doink, which actually gets going in between these two episodes on Superstars, where they do the thing where, Doink gives Crush a flower, Crush hands the flower to someone in the audience, Doink pulls his arm out of the sling, it is not attached to his body because it is a fake arm, and beats Crush with it mercilessly.
Yeah, it was a very good beating.
I had forgotten how many times he hits him with the damn arm.
Just right in the back of the
over
head.
and over. And, they sold this thing like, he had really damaged Crush. Crush missed the Royal Rumble because of this attack. And it was not because he was actually injured or anything. It was because they really put that much investment into angles.
Yeah,
back then.
They wanted to sell the evil clown Doink isn't really a joke himself. And when it's time for him to actually get vicious, that's the real prank he plays. Beating you in the back of the head with a solid object repeatedly and laughing at you. Anybody, the later babyface Doink gimmick was kind of stupid. The original evil Doink the Clown gimmick was brilliant.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the first show actually ends with Heenan finally getting into the building.
Yeah, right
as
they
go
fade out.
off the air. Yeah. Good stuff.
Definitely.
And they're really working this Heenan versus Bartlett thing. So in the next episode, they have Heenan on the phone talking shit to Bartlett. I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see if this ever, if there's any kind of payoff.
We'll find out if we
for
keep
this
watching
rivalry.
these.
Yeah, 'cause I don't remember Bartlett at all. Why? I don't know if he was still there by the time I started watching.
Yeah, I don't know. He's only there for a few months max, and that's it.
At the beginning of the second episode, he actually rips up a photo of Heenan.
Yeah.
On the air. And then suddenly the Repo Man jumps Randy Savage and takes his hat and makes off with it.
Well, he was missing payments on the hat, so it had to get repoed.
Yeah, so this is really the first Monday Night Raw angle.
Yeah, the real, like, it's a live angle.
Oh, no, wait, actually, I think we missed something from, or maybe not.
No,
Maybe
I don't think so. I think that was it. The beginning of the second episode of Raw, they started real hot. They started with, Bartlett doing a stupid comedy routine, then bam, Repo Man assaults Macho Man and gets away.
Right.
And you think, wow, what's going to happen next? Which is what you're going for,
Absolutely. And they do a promo with Repo outside later on in the show. And Macho challenges him, I guess, to what's going to be a New York City street fight. That looks like what they're building up to. I've never seen it. So I had never seen this episode before. So I don't know what's going to happen, which is really kind of fun.
Well, how excited were you when Terry Taylor came to the ring?
Now,
terrific Terry Taylor.
Now, here's the thing, as he says.
This is something we got to talk about because terrific Terry Taylor comes out to watch Mr. Perfect. And you know what? As much as I dislike Terry Taylor, as much as in watching all this old stuff from the 80s and early 90s, like he's just always there. He's fucking ubiquitous. Whether it's WWF or NWA or Mid-South or whatever it is, or World Class, whatever I fucking put on, motherfucking Terry Taylor is always there, being a void of charisma.
He is a fine
complete
technician.
void, yes.
And yet, I really have an appreciation that I never had before, because wrestling is lacking. Wrestlers these days, in the current contemporary times of 2021, are lacking this basic ability to work and get heat, which Terry Taylor clearly has. He comes out here with Mr. Perfect, and just from his facial expressions and a little bit of stalling and his reaction when Perfect slaps him in the face, the crowd is totally on Terry Taylor in the right way, and it, like they work a freaking good match here.
They really do.
For what it was.
Well, Perfect was excellent, Perfect knew how to take advantage of all that. And Terry Taylor was like, technically speaking, he's a fine worker. He knew where to be and why. And like you said, he knew how to get heat in that sense of like, he knew when and where to hit the beats for the crowd. He himself didn't have a lot of charisma. He didn't have a compelling character. He didn't give you a reason to care about him. He knew what to do. He never really knew who to be. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing to do here was to get Mr. Perfect over, right? Not that you had to try very hard, because everybody fucking loves Perfect, and he's perfect. Everything he does is amazing, from the towel toss behind his back to the ref when he enters the ring, to his drop kicks, to just the way he jumps over the top rope. And this is after he had retired because of back problems and returned, and he's fucking amazing. One thing Terry Taylor does that's kind of cool, he pulls out a fucking doctor bomb. He does like a gut wrench power bomb, sit down power bomb to Mr. Perfect that Perfect kicks out of. And then, so I said that, Repo Man versus Macho Man was the first angle that they began here on Raw, but the first like main event angle that they start here is between Perfect and Flair. And Flair comes out during this match. He distracts Perfect on the outside and beats on him a bit. But Perfect still wins. He still hits the Perfect Plex and defeats Terry Taylor. But he's pissed about Flair, and this is going to play into later in the show. Vince calls the Perfect Plex the Superplex because he's just really not all that sharp at this point.
Vince was never that into move names. Like he likes move names, I think, but he never was really into getting it right.
Anyone looks great next to what's his fuck.
I think Vince is really, yeah. I think Vince is really nervous on these first two episodes of Raw.
I'd be.
Like, it's their first foray, really, besides Saturday night's main event into live television. Like, their first weekly live show. A lot is resting on it. It's post-Hogan. He's still kind of grasping at straws for what the next thing is going to be. And, they hadn't really solidified their identity as a company going into this new generation, as it would be called. Yeah,
they hadn't come up with the new generation yet. I had mentioned when we covered this upcoming Royal Rumble, how if you look at the 1992 Royal Rumble and then look at the 1993 Royal Rumble, 1 year has passed, but there's not a whole lot of overlap in the roster of the people in the Rumbles. And you see that on these shows. Like, anybody that's been around for more than a year or two, other than like Bret and The Undertaker, seems kind of outdated. And that is definitely an indicator of a complete changing of the guards and a changing within the WWF.
Now, next we get back-to-back my two favorite wrestler commercials of all time.
Yeah.
And probably at least one of them is my favorite just because it was one of the first that I saw when I was a kid. The iconic Ico Pro commercial with Bret Hart.
Yeah. To be the World Wrestling Federation champion, you gotta want it every day. He's walking forward.
You gotta want it every day.
Camera shooting
it
up
takes
at
an
him.
integrated approach to conditioning, and that's what Ico Pro is all about.
Yeah. Bret said he hated Ico Pro. They sent him a ton of it, and it just kind of sat in his garage. Yeah, he said he tried it.
They're pushing it really hard at this point.
It's just a supplement line. Why not? Like, some people like to ridicule the WWF and WWE for trying different kinds of stuff like this. I think it's a good idea, I remember reading about when they were pushing Tout, like their social media platform that you could shoot like 15-second videos on. And like a lot of fans were like, God, this is stupid. Why are you trying this? This is so stupid. And it wasn't like a great idea. But the investment they made into Tout monetarily is so little. And the potential return in making a successful social media platform is so large that there was no reason for them not to try it. They didn't lose anything by trying it. And whatever, they made some shitty supplements for a couple of years. Okay,
Now, I bet that shit's a collector's item now.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure I know a few people who'd want some. I'm looking on eBay.
Yeah. I can't imagine you can eat it anymore.
No. Just to put on your shelf.
Probably not good. Oh, I see. Yeah. So the next commercial was much more successful, which is, of course, the legendary original Macho Man Randy Savage Slim Jim commercial, which is like still so culturally relevant. Our friend Jordan, who from 2 Minutes to Late Night, who was on the podcast the one time, he does these bedroom covers of songs with a bunch of, he gets a bunch of musicians from various metal bands, and they recently did a cover of Pantera's Mouth for War with Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm singing it. It's fucking amazing. Go check it out on YouTube. I forget the name of the guitar player, but she fucking kills the dime bag solo. It's just it's amazing. I think it's one of the people from Code Orange. I'm not sure if that's the guitar player. But there's a 1 second clip of Macho Man from that commercial.
Yeah.
In the video for the song as well. Yeah.
Which second? Is it him saying
he's holding a fucking
chips? Because he's so offended that he's holding a bag of chips.
Chips! So.
And then he destroys the bag of chips.
I think he's probably saying snap into a Slim Jim. I don't know. You don't get
what
the
a
audio.
waste of chips. Someone would have eaten those.
Someone would have eaten those chips, yes. I always like that. That's committing to the character right there. Chips!
Yeah. Chips. So we come back with Bret doing his in-ring interview about the upcoming match with Rezar Ramon. Bret has the title. He talks a lot about how he's the best. I believed him. Well, I didn't, when they played the interview on Superstars, which I'm sure they did. He's pissed that Rezar jumped Owen. He cannot comprehend how someone could not have respect for his father, Stu.
Yeah. Come on, man. He's so old. That was the main reasoning.
Yeah. So he says he's gonna kick Rezar down on Conscious Street. I'm gonna kick you down
really
on
good.
Conscious Street.
I'm gonna kick you down on Conscious Street. I thought that was a really good line. I've never heard anything like that before.
It doesn't really make any sense, but
there's
sure.
a street that when you kick someone down to the end of it, they're unconscious. It's called Unconscious Street.
Right, but he says Conscious Street.
Does he?
I don't know. Yeah, he said on Conscious Street. I think there were two sounds that he needed to make there, and he only made one sound.
Yeah, perhaps.
On and un. Anyway, Bret wasn't the greatest promo, but
he got his point across.
Okay. Marty Jannetty versus jobber Glenn Ruth, who I thought was actually a fairly charismatic, entertaining jobber. Mm-hmm. He had good facial expressions.
Yeah, he did. I agree.
Glenn Ruth.
He was certainly better than Barry Hardy.
Yeah, and they do this whole gimmick where HBK is on the phone during it. I always liked those on the phone interviews during the matches on Raw.
I was cracking up because even by phone, he was outshining Jannetty.
He definitely was.
But I like those because it created more realism. They're off in their life somewhere doing whatever.
Yeah.
And but we can catch them on the phone.
He's not there, when he's not booked. Why would he be? Just hanging around, Unless he was up to no good.
Jannetty wins it with the rocker dropper, and that's it.
Yeah, right, and that's it.
It was a fine squash.
It was fine. Marty looked a little rough.
Marty looked rough. It's so weird because at the time, as a kid, I didn't notice that Marty was rough.
Yeah.
Marty was the good rocker.
Right.
He was the one I liked and wanted to see win, and he was exciting, and but looking at him now, it's like, damn, yeah, he was already going through rough times, which
as it turns out,
apparently would just get rougher as his life continued.
He's pretty rough nowadays, yes. He's still alive, though, which is more than I can say for a lot of his contemporaries. For now.
Yeah, that's not... You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, including some that he may have murdered himself.
Possibly.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows what skeletons are in that closet of Marty Jannetty's. He's already revealed a couple of them, apparently.
Yeah, I'm not going to poke him too much.
So we get the promo with Repo Man, and I just wanted to point out one of the things that Repo Man says is that, Savage would never pay attention to him before.
Yeah.
But now he's got his attention. So, Repo Man is a B, C, D list superstar
Q-list.
here.
No, not Q-list. Q's a bad letter. He is Z-list.
Yeah. So, but he's motivating why you should care about a match between him and Randy Savage, and why Savage would want a match with him, So, and that really provides some insight into why wrestlers attack each other.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they're trying to get someone's attention so you can get a match that's somewhat above your station.
I think these days they call that clout chasing.
There
Yes.
you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Like doing a diss video on TikTok
Yeah.
or whatever the kids are
That's
doing.
The talk
these days.
tick.
the talks.
The talk tick and the chat snap.
Should people still snap?
I don't even
I don't
know.
know.
I couldn't
I
quite
never
Into a Slim
snapped.
Jim?
No.
Into a Slim Jim?
I mean, yeah, I think people still snap into Slim Jims.
They're still making them.
Anyway.
What happened next
our
on
main
Monday Night
event-
Raw?
Our main event is El Matador, Tito Santana versus the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. And this was a good match, too.
Yeah, I mean,
it
Tito
didn't-
Santana's great.
Yeah, it didn't have a clean finish. But while they were in there, they did some great stuff. I thought it was interesting, Flair had been in the WWF for a little while now. I'm not sure if he had been in the ring with Tito before. I was expecting a figure four because, the figure four, of course, was Flair's signature move. And Tito Santana beat Greg Valentine with the figure four at WrestleMania 1. So this could have been kind of a showdown of the figure fours. Of course, it had been years since Santana had used that move at this point. But, they're two veterans having a very solid match here. The crowd is way into Flair. They were chanting for Flair during the Perfect match, and they were really excited to see Flair this time. Even though, again, he was the heel. But this is the New York crowd, right? This New York Manhattan Center crowd is not necessarily going to be cheering for the baby faces and booing the heels.
The concept of the smart mark was very in its infancy at this point. Really, you just had to go to a lot of shows and meet people. And all of those people were in the Manhattan Center. Now, I couldn't quite catch what it was that Rob Bartlett said about Tito Santana that was disparaging during Tito's entrance. But Tito's coming down.
I'm sure it was stupid.
I'm sure it was stupid. Like, Tito's coming down, and Vince McMahon is putting him over like $1 million. He's like one of the all-time greats in the World Wrestling Federation. And I mean one of the all-time greats, Tito Santana. And then Bartlett's like, did this guy ever something stupid? And Vince is just like, I don't think so. It's like,
Yeah.
pick up what the boss is putting down. Don't immediately ridicule the guy Vince is saying is one of the best wrestlers in the history of the WWF. And he's also trying to put him over because he's about to be in the ring with Ric Flair. And it's trying to be, well, if you want a good wrestling match, Tito and Ric Flair will have a good match. And they did.
Yeah. One other thing about the crowd cheering for Flair, Macho tries to cover for it by being like, oh, there's a bunch of Ric Flair fans here. Actually, all of his fans in the world are
Right.
here tonight. Thought that was good. And Flair actually gets at Macho at some point in the match because they had history.
Recently.
Fairly recently.
They fought at the
with,
previous WrestleMania.
At the previous WrestleMania, which was still recent history in this day.
And then they traded
Whereas-
the title again a few months afterwards.
That's right.
Like,
That's right. Yeah.
Recent history, for sure.
Right, and they fought they had the tag match at the Survivor Series,
Yeah.
which led into the Perfect Flair feud.
Just a few months
and
before
this is actually a good time to talk about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was supposed to be the Ultimate Maniacs of Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man versus Ric Flair and Rezar Ramon at Survivor Series, but Warrior suddenly left the company. Him and the British Bulldog,
Yeah.
strangely enough, left the company at the same time. I wonder what those two guys had in common.
Steroids. He's talking about steroids.
Oh, man.
And
so
so-
actually, it's come out specifically. They were both doing growth hormone, which was new at the time.
Steroids.
And so Macho needed a partner. And I imagine, if Perfect was starting to feel better, he was getting ready to get back in the ring, they were planning the Perfect Flair feud eventually anyway. But Mr. Perfect, who had been, Flair's, what did they call him? His advisor or something like that, decided to come out of retirement and join Savage, thereby turning on Flair. And they had the tag match at the Survivor Series, which transitioned from the Macho Flair feud into the Perfect Flair feud, which is here the first major feud of Monday Night Raw, the first main event feud. And, just as Flair had interfered in Perfect's match, Perfect interferes in Flair's match here. But instead of just distracting him, he just starts beating the shit out of him.
Yeah, blatant
causing
DQ.
the disqualification.
Flair had been putting Tito over like Tito was going to win. Tito hits the flying forearm and Flair just gets out of the way when Tito's trying to give him another one and Tito falls to the outside.
Yeah. Another thing about this match, though, before we get to the end, Flair just kept fucking blatantly poking him in the eye in front of the ref. That was kind of annoying.
It gets to be a bit much, yes.
I don't remember if that was a thing that Flair did regularly. I guess maybe.
Kind of was, but
Yeah, it annoys me. That Flair, he doesn't know how to work.
I mean, that's the thing with a guy like Flair. He'd been doing his shtick for so long. What were you going to do? Just if you were an upstart ref, you're just going to disqualify Ric Flair against the boss's advice when he pokes someone in the eye? It's not the time or the place.
Right, yeah.
Yo, go big or go home.
Yeah, go big or go home, I guess.
I'm shitting around.
So Flair and Perfect brawl. They brawl after the break. Somehow they're separated, and Flair is able to do an interview where he challenges Perfect live in front of God and the whole world to a loser leaves the WWF match.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast before, how, so I went to that house show on January 29th, which was just a little bit more than a week after this. So I did, and I wasn't watching Raw yet. So I didn't see the loser leaves WWF match, which is on the next Raw, which I'm looking forward to covering. I'm not sure if I've ever seen it. I might have gone back and watched it at some point, but I saw Flair versus Perfect on the house show, which I now realize was after the loser leaves WWF match on Raw. And then the following superstars, they're like, oh yeah, Perfect beat Flair and Flair's gone from the WWF. And I was like, was that because of the DQ because in the match I saw at the house show, Rezar comes in and causes the DQ, so Perfect wins the match. And I was like, was that the match that made Flair leave the WWF?
If anything, they may have, if you dug far enough, do an explanation like, well, Ric Flair will fulfill his live event commitments, even though he's leaving the WWF, which is a pretty standard kind of explain away for stuff like that.
So then somehow they get Flair out of there so that Perfect can come and do an interview without them crossing paths.
Right.
Somehow. And Perfect accepts. And then Repo Man takes Rob Bartlett's car.
Right.
And we go.
That's my car. Yeah, for some reason he was asking about his car the whole episode. It didn't make much sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess, well, at the time in New York City, you worried about your car.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, so when I was a little kid, I had a drawing tutor because I could not and still cannot draw. But he tried to help me draw when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And he was a cool guy, a guy named Luis, and he would take me to the comic book store to help inspire me because I liked comic books, and he tried to teach me some comic book drawing and things like that. And so we went to Village Comics on Bleecker Street.
Yeah.
And we parked outside on Bleecker Street, if you can believe it nowadays, anybody who lives in New York. And we went up into Village Comics for like 15 minutes.
By the way. You're lying. There's no parking on Bleecker Street.
Well, that's not the crazy thing. So we parked on Bleecker Street. We went up, got the comics, came back down like 15 minutes later, and his window had been smashed and his car stereo stolen.
Well, that I believe
in that
is
time.
the thing.
Yeah, like
So you worried about your car.
you worried about your car. I figured Bartlett would like be able to park in the lot. I don't know.
Perhaps, yeah.
But you're right. New York was a much rougher place at the time. You know, sometimes you'll see people that still don't know make jokes about like, oh, you got to be careful in New York. It's like, you don't got to be that careful in New York.
One more little detail before we go about the Ric Flair promo that I forgot. Mid promo, he turns around and kisses a random fan in the audience. He's unhinged, as the great Ric Flair promos are, and it's a short one, but it's still a good one. All right, well, I really fucking enjoyed watching these episodes of Monday Night Raw.
I did too. I'm sorry I couldn't bring as much of my normal energy today, but
that's okay, Katie. You want to talk a little more?
No, man, I'm good. I was happy to be able to get one good joke about you having a hemorrhoid pillow in there.
Okay.
It's what I do for my part. Guys, get vaccinated. It's not that bad.
Yeah,
Get vaccinated.
yeah. Hopefully, I can do it soon.
You'll be tired.
They are opening up appointments all the time, Ben.
Awesome.
You should be able to just check as soon as you wake up is what I found works best.
Got you. I'm excited to watch more of these. I wish there was a wrestling show like this nowadays. NWA Power was kind of it for a little while.
It was.
It's like an hour long is wrestling television that builds programs with meaningful matches that don't overdo it, that have, characters that matter and that you can get into. Like,
They're bringing Power back, though.
Okay.
Yeah, they are. It's going to be on Fight. I'm not exactly sure how, but like the NWA is getting their stuff rolling again. We'll figure it out.
All right. Is it going to be free on Fight?
I don't know the situation.
I
but
saw
it's coming back.
I saw some quick print advertising. I will investigate further later. All right. Well.
All right.
So thanks to all of our premium listeners for listening to this with us, for supporting the show. We really appreciate that. You keep us going, and we are still going. And we'll be back next week with another premium episode. We'll be back with a regular episode in just a few days. And all right, so if there's nothing else, for Professor Benjamin Abelson and for referee Katie Vella, I'm Doc Diamondfire. We will see you next time. You have been listening to Contesting Wrestling. We love you.
Get vaccinated.
Peace.
Bye.